Hey YouTubers, Rob here with another Commodore 64 game. This time we're looking at Spitfire Ace, a 1984 released by Microprose software. This is actually the second edition of the game. The first edition came out a year earlier and was a little more primitive in the presentation. Originally was developed for the Atari computer line by Sid Meier, Civilization fame. It was one of his early games, actually one of the company's early games. It's a follow-on to Hellcat Ace, which was out in 1982, and this sort of was a bit of, I guess you'd say, a reskin, a minor enhancement. So dive in. Basic idea is it's a fairly simple but incredibly engrossing, oddly enough, World War II dogfighting game. So dive in. The startup is pretty sparse. All you've got is these scenarios and your players. The basic way the game works is you proceed through the scenarios and engage enemy fighter, and you aim to become an ace by taking out the enemy in at least 5, which, as in real life, gets you denoted an ace. But each mission you can win by taking out the enemy, you can survive in case you are forced to bail out, or you can lose if the enemy takes you out. So it gets on like that. So we'll dive in, play off single player, start on scenario 1. When you start up, you've got your briefing here. Your difficulty level controls how challenging the enemy AI is, but also controls how much ammo you have. As you play through the game, like if you start on level 0 and you successfully defeat enemies, the level will go up until you're on max level 3. I'll start on level 2. You could skip in case you're not sure you can do this mission, and that passes on to the next player, on to the next mission, and you can dive in. So, before we do, I actually really like the control scheme for this game. Most flight simulator games on the C64 would tend to be a joystick for controlling the plane and using the keyboard to control speed, weapons, etc. With this, you actually use 2 joysticks. One joystick in port 2 becomes your means of movement and firing. The second joystick in port 1 becomes your throttle and allows you to eject if you're critically damaged. And what I like is you actually have to be slow and at a reasonable height to eject. You can't just eject and survive, which I think adds a little bit of realism, which is surprisingly for such an early game. And actually playing this on the C64 with the 2 joysticks on my lap was actually really helped that immersion. So we'll dive in. I'll start on level 2, as it's a good challenge, and we have to wait. This is one of the things I'd sort of rate the game is a bit slow. It's got to set everything up, which for such an early game isn't much of a surprise. Here we are. We've got our basic instrumentation, speed, altitude, power, ammo. Course, of course, denotes our current heading. I'll put our speed up. You can sort of see the frame rate is not the greatest. Above the speed and altitude, you have the rear view mirror, and that you can see a little light sort of tells you, relatively speaking, where the plane is. Now we've got it in sights. The idea is we've got to just take them down, which is surprisingly challenging on these harder levels. Now I'm being hit as well. I've got to be careful, because if I'm not careful, I'll get taken out. Like I said, it's the first thing I find engrossing with this game is that you have to actually work to avoid the enemy. It's even after single plane, there's still some decent AI involved, especially for the time. That was a close pass there. close with that. And I've hit the ground. Oops. As I failed to watch the ultimate altitude, I hit the ground and it's game over with a score of 0. So going for another play. This time I might go to level 1. We'll actually try and take this target out. So again, I really like the way the controls work, in that it sort of gives you that extra immersion. The frame rate and the graphics aren't that great. In fact, comparing screenshots from this edition of the game and the original edition, the big difference is you don't have the covered cockpit. You just have the instrumentation panel, and it's just using the standard ROM font rather than a custom font here, so it does look a little less involved. But from what I gather, I haven't actually played that version of the game. I actually got this on an order a few weeks ago, and I've been playing it quite a bit in some downtime on the C64, so I thought I'd do a video. I had actually thought of doing sort of a comparison between this Hellcat and the sort of follow-on, which was... there we go. Target destroyed. So we've got our first victory, and we'll move on to the next scenario. But yeah, there's actually a follow-on to this, which is called MiG Ace, set in the 50s. The big difference is that actually has a 2-player competitive mode, which would be an interesting alternative to games like Ace 2. But that would be another video. So again, we've got another scenario we need to avoid. We can also win by actually escaping, but I've never actually been able to do it. I've always just decided to take my attackers out. I'm impressed that there's actually those options. I'm actually impressed that there are options too. I'm taking them out. That was a lot faster than first thought. And as I said, it may look easy now, but especially once you have become an ace, you actually find that you'll be up at difficulty level 3, and that gets incredibly tough. I mean, you saw me earlier on on difficulty level 2. But I kind of like that the game offers that challenge. As I said, I was surprisingly impressed with that challenge. So as the next scenario. So based on how you do each mission, you will get points, and the idea is, depending on each player's skill, they will get differing points, and ultimately, when the game is over, all the players have fallen in battle, or they've completed all 9 scenarios. You get the final score and see which is the better pilot. That was close. We've been hit quite a few times there. As you can see, we've actually gone up to level 2 now, based on Yes! Enemy destroyed. And that means we've got our ace. I've got my ace hood. So now with that, we're now on to our next mission. We've gone up to level 3. So this could probably not end well. And it turns out we did. Well, that didn't end well. So there we go. In this case, I got my 5 victories, score of 7,000, and ranked pilot class 4. And that brings it to an end. And so that's Spitfire Ace. All in all, it's like I said, it's oddly engrossing. Like, as a fairly early flight game, as you know, these primitive graphics, the interesting control method, I actually find this a great deal of fun. They've done like, even though the flight modeling is not great, the controls, it all comes together to just being this fairly simple little game that's actually fun. So I definitely think it's one to check out. It's not, you're not going to have the excellent music of something like Ace 2. You're not going to have the technical depth of Microprose's own later games when you're looking at Gunship or Project Stealthfighter, and you're not going to have the incredibly high speed that the original Ace had. But you have the original Ace, by meaning Cascades Ace that I looked at previously. But you have something that's actually its own little take. It's actually quite fun. So worth checking out. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to bringing you another game soon. As is always the case, if you enjoy this, like, subscribe, link it, and all of that. And interesting to hear your thoughts as always. Thanks again for watching. Catch you next time.